The Atlanta Braves offense has looked better in the second half, but is it enough to make you believe that this Tim Hyers approach can work in 2026? And can they get that power back? I'll answer that question and many more on today's mailbag episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button. We're approaching 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. You can help others find us. Just hit that thumbs up button and leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for your support there. Continuing to grow the channel on YouTube, but we still get most of our listeners on the audio version, which I appreciate. Nobody wants to look at this. I understand. You can help out as well, though. Leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day, especially those continuing to tune in right now at the end of a very frustrating and long season. But it's our weekly mailbag episode. Many obviously tune in for this. It's our favorite episode of the week. I got about 12 to 13 questions, not as many this week to get to. A lot of them, as always, a wide variety of topics, some on Snicker, some on Hyers, some about potential free agent moves, all of that on today's episode of a Locked On Braves, which is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So we're doing this mailbag episode a little bit earlier than normal on Friday because I'm going to be at the game on Friday night. As soon as I clock out from both jobs today, I'll be heading to Atlanta to catch the game on Friday night. So if you're there, make sure you look me up, try to find me. I would love to get a chance to meet you, but looking forward to that. Taking the whole family. So it's going to be a family trip. We'll see how many innings we actually get to sit in our seats and watch the game. But really looking forward to it. Wanting to get to a ball game at least one more time this year, and should be a pretty good pitching matchup on Friday night as well with Hurston Waldrop on the mound. So looking forward to getting there. And again, hopefully able to run into a few of you there while we're at the game on Friday night. It is going to be Hurston Waldrop versus some guy named Murray, Jaden Murray for the Astros. Has only thrown 2 1/3 innings this year. I was hoping we were going to get to see Hunter Brown, but it looks like they're going with Murray. So still at least get to see Hurston Waldrop. So that'll be, again, a lot of fun. Can't wait to get down there to the ballpark. But let's jump into the questions now because it's our weekly mailbag episode. First one from Wriggler2, who says, Snit sounds like he's leaning towards returning. The team core still can't hit. Bullpen seems to be in shambles. Can you provide some optimism about next season? So yeah, I'd love to. I would love to share some optimism in what is a very difficult time right now for Braves fans, where everything seems pretty pessimistic and down, as you said. I kind of spoke on this on the podcast earlier this week on whether or not it would be so bad if Brian Snitker returns. And while I said in there, I think it's time for a new voice, I think it's time for a change in leadership, I did also say if he were to come back, it would not surprise me if this team turned things around and won again, because I still believe the core talent of this team is there. But big changes need to be made. And to your point, I think there still needs to be a major bat added somewhere. There's going to be another question about this later about adding an outfielder, and I think that needs to be what happens. I think they need to add a big bat somewhere, but it would be best if they can find somebody that can play in the outfield, and you can kind of move Ronald and Profar through the DH spot, and it's just more a fluid DH spot, and not bringing back an Ozuna, somebody that just sticks. So there's one thing, and a lot of this is going to be predicated on what happens in the offseason, but I think these things will. I think Alex Anthopoulos knows that. I think they reset the tax to go out and spend this offseason. That is my optimistic hope that I have for this offseason. So they need one big bat to shake things up. Now, that's not going to fix everything. Another part of this, which is another big question in the title of this episode, assuming Brian Snitker stays and Tim Hyers stays, what does the offense look like another year into kind of this shift of better plate discipline, being more patient approach, drawing more walks, but also still trying to hit for average while not completely sacrificing power. And again, it's another question that we'll get more into. But that is, again, if you're being optimistic, you're thinking, okay, you bring in another big bat to help deepen this lineup. You get another year of this Tim Hyers offensive scheme that you're maybe trying to develop these hitters into. And we've seen some strides from guys in the second half on that approach. So again, just thinking optimistically, another year of that perhaps gets better next year. And they're more in line with that offense. And the other part of it is just knowing that you need to go out and get not just bullpen depth, Rigler, but also rotation depth. You just need pitching depth overall. You have to account for the fact that at least 2 starters are going to miss significant time. Now for the Braves this year, it was 5. It was a lot, but on most seasons, you're going to lose at least 2 starters for significant time, if not most of the year. And you're probably going to have 2 others that are banged up at some point. So you need some quality depth in your rotation. And I think they have that now with Hurston Waldrop and Bryce Elder, again, hoping that he has an option left, but it sounded like that might not be the case. You listened to yesterday's episode. But they do have some quality depth. J.R. Ritchie knocking on the door, Lucas Braun, and others. They do have some quality depth, I feel like, that now has experience in Hurston Waldrop and even a Didier Fuentes. I know it wasn't great, but he now at least has that experience to build on for when he gets another opportunity. The key for them now in this offseason is going to be filling it in with veteran quality depth that you can plug into your rotation, and then you have those other guys ready to go when those injuries strike. And in the bullpen, it's just, we knew it coming into this year. It was the biggest thing. They didn't address the bullpen. You didn't address the loss of AJ Minter, the injury of Joe Jimenez. It's the 2 of your biggest setup guys, and it showed this year. When you had some aggression from Iggy early on, who struggled, you had the ups and downs of Pierce Johnson and Dylan Lee, who have mostly been good, but they have certainly, had some of their issues. Daysbull, kind of falling apart after a pretty good start and not just really taking that step forward that we hoped. You have got to find more proven depth in your bullpen and your rotation. So optimistically thinking, you get another big bat in the offseason. The whole group has another year and a better understanding of the Tim Hyers approach, and you get more quality depth in your rotation and bullpen. And I still think the core is there. Still some really good players, obviously, with Acuna, Olsen, Riley back healthy. What we've seen from Ozzie in the second half, Michael Harris in the second half, Ha-Sung Kim now in play, giving you a better bat. Drake Baldwin. I mean, there's still really good players here. So optimistically speaking, I could see things really getting turned around in another year, whether Snit is here or not. And again, I'm very clear. I'm ready for a new leadership and a new voice. But I just think if those things happen in the offseason, even with Snit back and Tim Hyers, I think there's reason to be optimistic. Big Dog Fan 73, do you think John Hill has the potential to be the shortstop of the future? He's only 19, and his power has improved this year. His power has improved, not a ton, but I mean, to your point, it's better than it was, and he is just 19. I think it's very interesting they moved him up to Double-A. And it's only been 3 games at Double-A, so not really anything to go on there. But you look at his numbers in High A this year, a 118 WRC plus, a 120 ISO. Again, not great, but it's better than the 80 ISO that he had in 2024. A 12.3% walk rate, 13.9% K rate. The plate discipline's always been there, which is great for a young hitter. He's always hit around 250. I just feel like the bat to ball skills, he's probably should be more of a 270, 280 hitter. And maybe that comes when he does grow into hopefully a little bit more power. I don't think he's ever going to be a 20 home run guy, but even just a mid-teens home run guy. The only thing I don't know on him at this point is the defense. And if the defense is there, then there's a legitimate chance. And like I said, they've already promoted him up to Double-A. That tells me they at least think highly of him, where he's playing, by the way, with Ambrose Tavares. And they're putting Tavares at second, which they've done a lot this year. They even did it with him at High A with Lisandro Espinosa. I think that's more just they know what Tavares can do at shortstop and how good he is there, and they're just trying to see what they have in other guys. But that is telling that maybe they could move John Gill a little bit quicker, and maybe he is an option at shortstop. I don't think it would be next year, maybe not even the year after that, but I think he could be in that running. He's definitely going to be one of the first players I dive deep into in the offseason when I normally do my minor league report. So I can't wait to dive more into him, because I know the bat to ball skills have always been there. The plate discipline's always been good. I just don't know how he looks defensively at shortstop, and I won't know that until I'm able to watch several games on him and see the actions, the the transfers, all of that, how quick his hands are, how quick his first step is, all of that. Hard to tell it from minor league videos, quite honestly. All right, that was 2 of our 13 questions. We'll get into more of them here next. You've probably seen a million ads for hair growth products and thought, sure, like that actually works. There are so many products out there and it's hard to know which ones are actually going to do anything. That's why you should give Nutrafol a closer look. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. And it's not just hype. This is a supplement clinically tested that targets the root causes of thinning and shedding with a proactive approach. Whether you are at work, out with friends, or even just getting ready in the morning, Nutrafol gives you more confidence in your daily routine. And you can feel good about it knowing Nutrafol is NSF certified and backed by peer-reviewed studies. See thicker, stronger hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. And for a limited time, Nutrafol is offering Locked On MLB listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Thank you as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Make sure you go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day, where solely get you caught up on all the action happening around Major League Baseball and every night. The guys from MLB Game Night bring you the biggest highlights from each and every day as well, wrapping up the 2025 season. It's almost done here. 2.5 weeks left on the season. All right, let's jump back into the questions here. Next one from PJ's Braves, who says, knowing the team will have to clear spots on the 40-man roster in order to protect some minor leaguers, what current players on the roster do you think will be removed, whether trade or DFA? So bear with me. I'm going to run through the 40-man roster here real quickly and just tell you who I think can be removed. And I'm not saying all these guys need to. Certainly some of them I wouldn't mind if they stayed around, but these are guys that I think you could remove and nobody's going to lose sleep over. Aaron Bummer is one, but he's expensive. That would pretty much be a salary dump if you were able to move him. But again, the Braves have never trusted him in high leverage situations, but he's owed a lot of money next year. He's probably going to have to stick around because of that. But if the Braves can find a way to dump that salary, I think they will try to. Austin Cox, Alexis Diaz, Dane Dunning. Sorry, running down through the list alive here on air, so I apologize for that. Also, Connor Siebold, Hunter Stratton, Joey Wentz, Nathan Wiles. That's 8 pitchers that I think can just be removed from the roster. And again, that's nothing against those guys. Some of them I wouldn't mind hanging around for depth, but they're guys that you could remove and nobody's going to lose sleep over. Continuing to the position player side, Sandy Leon, but you're going to have to replace him with a catcher. You got to have 3 catchers on the 40-man roster. Infielders, Nick Allen. Again, love what he did this year, but I just don't know what his role is going forward other than just a late game defensive replacement. So sorry, Nick Allen. Grateful for what you've done this year, but if he goes, I don't think anybody's going to lose too much sleep. Vidal Brujan, Jonathan Orneas, Jake Fraley, even again, another player. I wouldn't mind if he stuck around as a left-handed, bench bat, 4th outfielder, but if he goes and you're able to upgrade that, not losing any sleep. Jared Kelnick, I think that experiment is over. He can go. Carlos Rodriguez, again, great depth. Wouldn't mind keeping him around, but if he goes, nobody's losing sleep. You're also losing Ozuna and Iglesias to free agency. So again, that's I lost count. I've ran out of fingers, but that's over 15 guys that can be removed from the 40-man roster. I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue finding 40-man roster spots this offseason. Kathy G says, how do you see the offense next year? Is it possible to merge the Hyers way with more power production, like a 2-strike approach with this roster? Olsen seems to have benefited from it, but at the expense of power. Would love to hear your thoughts, and thank you as always. Well, thank you, Kathy. And this is the question that led to the title of this episode. But I think Kathy is on point with exactly what I hoped to see. And again, if Hyers sticks around, hopefully what we do see next year, because I was all on board with getting Tim Hyers and him instilling an approach of more patience, working counts, putting the ball into play. Unfortunately, what we've seen more patience, which has led to more walks, but the strikeouts haven't really been reduced. The batting average hasn't really gone up, and the power has gone down. And that is like the worst outcome of what we wanted. But Kathy's right. I mean, what I would like to see is part of the Hyers approach where you're more patient and you're working more at bats and you are getting walks to help your on-base percentage, but you also have to hit for average or else it's really not going to do much. And while power is going to come down a little bit with that approach, because hopefully, as Kathy says, hopefully you're incorporating a 2-strike approach, because with you being more patient, you're going to find yourself in more 2-strike counts. But in 2-strike counts, you can't still have that same power swing. But that's the way the Braves have always done it, is that they take their power swing no matter what the count. There hasn't been a 2-strike approach. And I still like that's been the case this year, but because they're being more patient, they're getting more 2-strike counts. They're still swinging with that same power swing with 2 strikes, and it's leading to more strikeouts. So look, there is still a ways to go in this offensive approach. And kind of my whole thing with this second half of the season, what I said at the break is just find your identity. What approach do you want? Do you want to have this more all-encompassing approach, which I think is best for having a more consistent offense, being able to get on base, to work at bats, to take your walks, but also have the average and still have the power? Right now, they just have the walks and they're still striking out and the power has come down. You've got to find a way to kind of merge all of that together. And is this group capable of doing that? If they're not, do you just need to go back to the boom or bust approach, which has worked in the past? Right now, this entire season, it feels like they've just been caught in between. There have been signs of it in the second half where we've seen this, come into place a little bit more. And I think by getting guys like Profar back, who will work counts, take his walks, and also put the ball in play, adding somebody like a Ha-Seong Kim, who will do those same things and also has a little bit of speed. I think you're starting to see them add guys like that to it. You mentioned Matt Olson. I do think he is somebody that has taken this Tim Hyers approach, benefited from it by drawing more walks, hitting for a little bit of average, but it has taken away his power. It's made him more of a 20 home run hitter instead of a 30 plus home run hitter. So it's finding that middle ground. Now, if you could do that for all hitters, like you take the approach that Olson has and you did it for everybody, where everybody's, plate discipline is better. Everybody's, shortening up and shooting the ball the other way, which we've seen Matt Olson do a little bit more, and just taking his hits and not necessarily swinging for power all the time, which Matt Olson, he's swinging for power. That's what you want out of him. But if everybody took that approach, I think you would have a more well-rounded offense. So all that to say, to answer the question, how do you see this offense next year? It's kind of hard to answer because it depends on who they bring in. But again, from the Profar signing, from the Ha-Seong Kim signing, it seems like that's the direction they want to go. And if Tim Hyers stays on, and if this is the direction they still want to go offensively, those adjustments still have to be made. You have to have the better 2-strike approach of putting the ball in play, cutting down on the strikeouts that raise your average along with raising your on base. And look, Freddie Freeman's a Hall of Famer. We all know that. But Freddie Freeman had the right approach where you ambush the first pitch. You go up there with a game plan, you get it first pitch, you take your shot at it. If you miss it, then now you go to work and you work yourself back into the account and you start thinking the other way. And that's what Freddie Freeman did. It was what it was so great at. And I think we've seen a little bit of Matt Olson doing that this year. But that approach hasn't seemed to trickle down to everybody in the lineup. But I think that's the approach that they need to take for this type of offense that they want to be. So again, Kathy, I don't know that I gave you a great answer there, but I love your thought because I think you're right on with what you're saying. And that's where I think they need to go. It's just, can they get there? And that's something I don't know with this group that they have, but I think they are bringing in more players. I'll be very interested to see if they do bring in another bat this offseason, what type of bat that is. Is it more of the boomer bust, 25% strikeout rate, 8-10% walk rate, but high power, which they have gone to in the past? Or is it more of a put the ball in play, 18% strikeout rate, 12% walk rate type of hitter that's going to do a little bit of everything for you? So I'll be really interested to see if they bring in another bat, what that looks like. Double A says, when it comes to retiring numbers, do you think longevity or impact to the team's success is more important? I ask because with next year being the last year Sell is under the current contract, and if he pitches next year like he has, does his number get retired if he isn't back? No, it does not. Look at all what Andrew Jones has done for this franchise and how long he was there and the success that he had. And it took them forever to retire his number. They're not going to do it for Chris Sale in 3 seasons, even if he won a Cy Young here, and maybe even if he won a World Series with this team next year. I do think longevity matters in that, and just 3 years isn't long enough to consider retiring somebody's number. Adam says, who says no? Drake and Hurston for Bobby Witt. The Royals say no instantly. Bobby Witt's maybe the best shortstop. I'm just going to say it. He's the best shortstop in all of baseball right now. They're not trading him, and they're definitely not trading him for even two players as good as Drake and Hurston Waldrop. All right, we got several more questions left to get to on today's podcast. We'll get into that here next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with can't-miss offers. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel allows you to bet the way you like with player props, building same-game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. Hopefully, if you're playing fantasy baseball, you're still alive. I am in the Locked On Braves Listeners League, but might not be after this week. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to those Sunday afternoons when you're generally taking a nap. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Let's jump back into the questions. We got several more left to get to. Dustin Mount says, if Snit stays next season and players underperform again, does that buy them another year to see if a new manager can get more out of them before AA would blow things up? Hope they don't underperform, but wondering. And Dustin, just in case you're wondering, I answered your other question on yesterday's episode. So if you're wondering why I didn't answer it here, it's because I answered it on Thursday's podcast. But Dustin's an everydayer. I'm sure you already listened to it. Good question here. If Snit stays around and they underperform again, do they continue with this position player group, or do they try it with another manager? And that's part of the reason why I don't want Snit back. Because I think the last thing you can really do for this core to try to turn things around, other than just acquiring additional talent, which I think they need to do regardless, is getting a new voice and having a new direction of this team, a new direction of the offense, what they want to be, who they want to be, finding that identity, which I think they have struggled to find all year long offensively. And that's part of the reason why I want a change to be made now, and you don't waste another year. As I've said, though, I think Snit could come back with the offseason improvements that I think they need to make and win next year. But to answer Dustin's question, if they were to underperform, would that lead AA to blow things up? If they underperformed, is AA still the GM? Might be another question too. I think because of the contract situations, it's still not going to be possible to do a full blow up because of the contracts of, Riley, of Harris, even of Olsen. You get closer. I think at that point, there'd only be 2 years left on Murphy's contract. But because of some of these contracts, I don't think it would be possible to do a full blow up because you still have a lot of key players. And I guess it depends on how some of those key players do, obviously. But I think it would be hard to do a full blow up. But I think you could see, because I think this season we're not going to see. I know we talked earlier on in this season when things were going really bad for a lot of these players that maybe we see a lot of position players shake up. I think now this offseason, it is going to be about shaking up the coaching staff more than the position player side of things. And then if they underperform again next year, I think we would see more of the position player shake up. But again, to your question, if Snit stays around, does that delay it next year? Then after next season, do we see the coaching shake up? And then the year after that, if they underperform, then do we see so I think to answering your question and thinking about it in real time here, I think it would buy the players another year. Just partially because you would want to see what a new voice can do. You still have, Riley under contract through 2032. You still have Matt Olson under contract through 2029. You still have Acuna under contract through 2028. You still have Spencer Strider under contract through 2029. You have Sean Murphy under contract through 2029 as well with option years. Michael Harris through 2032. I mean, you still have a lot of your core players locked up for a while. And so I think if Snit were to return, they were to underperform next year, I think then you would see the coaching staff shake up. And I think you would still see most of that core stay together. And then the next year, if they were to underperform, now we're talking about 3 years of underperforming, so hopefully that doesn't happen, is when you would see things blown up. So I don't think we'll see a complete blow up of this core until after 2027, but I'm not thinking they're going to underperform next year. We started this thing out optimistically, Dustin. Don't try to bring us down here with another year of underperformance. Matt H, of the top free agent starters, who would you want most? I want Cease. His stuff is gross. He's a Georgia native. And if we keep Kranitz, I think he could do great with him. So I don't mind. It's all, again, it's kind of a cop-out answer. It's all going to depend on the price, though, and the years. We just know Alex Anthopoulos isn't going to spend at the top level for anybody, but I think especially starting pitching with just how they can be done very quickly. You see, and again, I'm hopeful that Strider's going to return, but you see how quickly it can fall apart. Michael Soroka, you can see how quickly pitchers just completely fall off. Kyle Wright, Ian Anderson. I mean, you can see how quickly that good pitchers can just fall off a cliff because of injuries. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to sign a pitcher to a 7-year deal worth $30 million when, going into their 30s, which most free agents are, because injuries might cost them 2 years of that. And then you got regression. And again, that's all risky when you do these free agent signings, but when it hampers you from doing other things and you got a dead arm on your team, that's really tough. I've always been on the Michael King train. I just think his stuff is that good, but he's had troubles with injuries. He's been another one that's converted from reliever to starting pitcher, and it seems to have led to some injury concerns. I'm hoping because of the injury concerns this year that maybe he'll have to take a 1-year kind of prove it deal. And I think the Braves could, capitalize on that. But you got Shane Bieber too. See what he looks like here down the stretch. I think what they're going to target is a Zach Gallen type, somebody that they can get on a short-term deal that's been good, maybe looking to kind of bounce back and, reassess their market, or taking a veteran like a Merrill Kelly, something like that. I think those are going to be the starters that they target. But if you're talking about big names, I mean, you got Framber, you got, Ranger Suarez, you got Dylan Cease, you got Shane Bieber, you got Michael King. I think of those, I'd love to get Ranger just to get him off the Phillies, and one, so he stops destroying the Braves. I think Dylan Cease probably has the biggest stuff of that group. He's under 30, and I think that would be the one that AA is most willing to go in on and spend the money on, just because he has been that durable. But everybody's durable until they're not. Everybody thought Zach Wheeler was untouchable, unbreakable for a while, and here we are. So that's just every pitcher. They're just a ticking time bomb. I say that all the time. But I do think Dylan Cease would be the one that AA would be more willing to spend on, just because of his durability over the years. Doesn't matter what this says. Dumb question, but with a healthy team next season on both sides, pitching in position, what's a realistic belief of possible win total? Hard to answer now, but couldn't think of anything better right now. Love the show. One of 2 shows I listen to daily. Well, thank you so much for being an every dayer. Again, it is hard to say now, but assuming whether Snicker's back or there's a new manager, whether Tim Hyers is back or they're going with a different offensive approach, I'm assuming, again, despite the coaching changes, I'm assuming they're going to make some big upgrades in the offseason. Assuming health, as you said, I still think it's a 90-plus win team. I think that is completely possible. So, again, I know I'm being optimistic here, but I still think with this team, when healthy, I still think it can be a 90-plus win ball club, assuming they're going to make some big improvements to the team this offseason. Sethan says, how many postcasts have you missed? Do you know? If not, I'm going to go count. Well, let me know what you get to count, but I'll say this. I can almost guarantee you I've done more postcasts this season than I did last year, because Lindsey, he's been on it. He's done a postcast almost every game. Me and Grant took some breaks last year. Grant had other duties that he had to do on Saturday with the radio show and all that. So there were just games that we completely didn't do last year. Lindsey's been on almost every game this season. I won't be doing the one on Friday night because I'll be at the game, but I can almost guarantee you I've already done more postcasts this year than last year. But let me know what you come up with there, Sethan. Chuck McMillan says, I just now noticed David Fletcher has been playing again for Gwinnett this year. Did he finally get cleared of gambling scandal? No, we just never got a response on it. I think they're just waiting for him to be rid of his contract and released and never speak of it again. Then Chuck also said, Bummer will be making more than I am comfortable paying him this year. Are we content with him as our second lefty out of the pen for next year? No, I don't think we are. And like I said, I think if the Braves can dump that contract somehow, I think they will look to do that this offseason. And I think Bummer's a fine guy, but the Braves have never trusted him, or at least Brian Snitker has never trusted him in that role. And then last one here from Matt Karch, who I think is about to eliminate me in our Locked On Braves listeners league, says this offense is sputtering again. We need a fourth outfielder who can definitely play every day at the spot. The Buxton move comes to mind. We cannot run this offense back as is and use 2 catchers as DH. The streaky hitters kill us for months at a time. MH2 isn't fixed. So the part of that I agree with, Matt, is that I do think they need another big bat, and I think it needs to be somebody that can play in the outfield so that you can rotate through the DH spot. I don't think they need an everyday DHer. I don't even know that, using Baldwin and Murphy, unless Murphy's, gets the surgery and all of a sudden he's back to being the hitter that he was at the beginning of 2023. And even at times during this season, and you just kind of play the hot hand if that's the case. But I do think they need another big bat, and I think it needs to be somebody that can play in the outfield so that you can rotate, Acuna, Profar, Murphy, if he's hot, rotate them to the DH spot. I do think that definitely needs to happen. Jay Alvarado in the comments here says, would keeping Ozuna really be that bad? Depends on what the price is. If you get him at a price where if he is struggling, you don't mind benching him, I'm fine with bringing Ozuna back just because I think he has become a good clubhouse guy, but it has to be at a price where you don't mind benching him, where he doesn't just, because you're paying him such and such, you got to play him every day. So it has to be the right price where you can treat him that way. Rod Rockington says, do you think they should bring back Julio Franco, maybe as a hitting coach or a hitting coach assistant? I wouldn't mind that, but no, unfortunately, I don't think he'll, even at his age, and it can be able to play at this point. As was 96. Heap Kranitz, he didn't have much to work with. All the starting pitchers out. Yeah, Kranitz is great. He's going to be back. They're not going to change that. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Again, can't wait to be out at the ballpark on Friday night. You see me, you run into me there. Make sure that you say hey. But thank you all for joining. As was 96, Jay, Rod, Wicked Jr. Thank you all for being here on today's live episode. Josh Thomas. Those who missed it, I understand we're doing this episode a little bit earlier than normal today. Scott Bingham in here says that only big outfielder I would want would be Kyle Tucker. Well, keep wishing. I don't think it's going to be that big, but I do think they get somebody, at least one big bat this offseason. That is my hope anyway. All right, subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we will talk to you next.